What's going on, everybody? Josh Engleman for Awesemo.com, and I am back with my NBA DFS contenders on DraftKings for Tuesday, June 15th. Now be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all of our other content goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman so you can get updates to these sim results as we get closer to lock. And finally, let me know in the comments section who is your favorite and least favorite of my contenders for today's slate. We're rounding out the bottom of my top 10. Blake Griffin, Bobby Portis, Tyler Johnson, Nick Claxton, and Khris Middleton on the outside looking in. Who will be my favorites, my top 5 plays for today? It's time to find out. First up at number 5, we are going to 4K Jeff Green. Projected for 21, just a 1% chance of being in the optimal spot at captain, but 52% chance at the flex, which means 53% of the time he's in the optimal lineup. I like that price because I think he's playing 30 minutes today. 0.7 fantasy points per minute, 16% usage, 11 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, maybe a stock. It's not a crazy stat line, but 4K is a price tag you're going to need because you've got major pay-up options in Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then the other 2 big boys in Jrue Holiday and Khris Middleton. Middleton obviously showing up in this list. So you are going to have to find some pay-down options, and to get one that I expect to play 30 minutes in green, to me, an absolute no-brainer. He's in this optimal lineup more than a coin flip, just slightly, but more than a coin flip, and that's all I need to know. Similar boat here, but slightly more expensive. We're going to Mike James, 4,800, projected for 24.5. He's in the captain spot 2% of the time, in the flex 54. That gives him a 57. Ooh, I almost couldn't say those numbers together. 57% chance of being in the optimal. Now, I gave him 28 minutes, but I do think it's possible that those minutes are a little bit higher. I basically have Mike James and Tyler Johnson splitting the point guard minutes, and that could go really any direction at this point. 0.87 fantasy points for Mike James per minute, 22% usage. It's a guy that's going to look for his own. 10 points, 5.5 assists, almost 4 boards, very little else. Probably gets beat repeatedly in pick and roll. We'll see how that shakes out. But either way, I assume he starts 4,800 for Mike James in that spot. Another perfect value piece. I think you're getting to Mike James and Jeff Green pretty regularly. Now we're getting into the big boys, and just 9K for Jrue Holiday, projected for 41. He's in the captain spot 8% of the time, in the flex 51%, optimal lineup 59 in total. I have Jrue playing 40 minutes. He's just barely north of a fantasy point per minute. Now, his usage has been down in these playoffs, 20%, but he's making that up with a bigger assist rate. So 17.5 points, 8.5 assists, 5 boards, 2.5 stocks, which is the biggie for Jrue. Very active defensively, as we know. But 9K for his role, I love it. I love him potentially as a sneaky captain play in GPPs, depending on where the ownership shows up. But because of that price tag, just 9K, he's a lot easier to get to than, say, Khris Middleton at number 6. Now, there's not a huge separation between the two, but I do think Holiday is the better value. Getting into a really different tier here at number 2, 12K Kevin Durant, projected for 61. He's in the captain spot 35% of the time, in the flex 47%, optimal lineup 82% of the time. Durant and obviously Giannis are just on a completely different planet here. I've got Durant in for 42 minutes, 1.46 DK points per minute with a massive 36% usage rate. That's 34 real points, 8 boards, 7.5 assists, and almost 3 stocks. Everybody in the world knows you're basically flipping a coin between Durant and Giannis today. I slightly prefer Giannis, but that is no indictment on Kevin Durant. You need him in basically everything you're doing. It's really difficult to advocate for a lineup construction without him, obviously. I think that you can get there because I assume his ownership is through the roof today. But even still, Kevin Durant is the number 2 contender. On most other days, he would be the number 1 contender. He's the only real guy that can do anything for the Nets at this point. He is primed to have a ridiculous day. I'm excited to see it, but for right now, he's still just number 2. Now, before we get to that number 1 contender, one last reminder, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Then head to Twitter and follow me at Josh Engleman. Only place you get updates to my sim results as we get closer to lock. Finally, comment section of this video. I want your favorite contender, your least favorite contender, and the guy that you thought was going to be on this list that you do not see. No surprises here. Number one contender, $11,800 Giannis Antetokounmpo, projected for 63. He's in the captain spot, the captimal. That's what happens when you're the optimal captain. 42% of the time. In the flex spot, 46% of the time. Ignore the rounding there. 90% chance of being in the optimal. 39 minutes, 1.62 fantasy points per minute, and a kind of similar line to Durant, just in a different way. 33 points, 13 boards, 6.5 assists, plus almost 3 stocks. I just think it's easier to get to more Giannis than more Durant today, particularly the little bit of savings in price helps. And I think Giannis is a more volatile fantasy performer. I think the highs are higher, but I think the lows are also lower. Plus, Giannis has Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton, and Kevin Durant doesn't. So it's a little bit different there, but I'll take the volatility. You're going to both Giannis and Kevin Durant in almost every single lineup you put out. There's a 0% chance you have a lineup built with neither of the two. That one would be totally impossible unless you're betting on them getting dual ejected to start the game. Where I stand is this. You're playing them both a ton, but you got to play Giannis Antetokounmpo slightly more because he is the number one contender for today. Alrighty, folks, that will do it. Those are my NBA DFS contenders on DraftKings for Tuesday, June 15th. There is no process show today, but FanDuel version of this video is around here somewhere. Strategy show with Laffy at 10 a.m. You don't want to miss it. No live before lock for me today, so keep your eyes peeled to my Twitter, and then that is it. I will be back again tomorrow morning for another edition of the Contenders. Good luck tonight, everybody.